The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off.
Feelings don't matter, so brace yourself tight. He'll lay it down heavy, he'll light up the night. No sugar-coated tales, just cold hard facts. In the realm of opinions, there's no turning back. Listen closer, just walk away. But Aaron had to say it, come what may. Here comes Aaron with the truth untold. No holding back, watch the truth unfold. On the podcast, airways feel the righteous sting. You either take it in or let the silence ring.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. So we're going to start out as we do by saying to Iceman, Jason, Mike, Tabby, Javier, Fitz, McShane, El Jefe, El Devlin, El Morte, to the guys of the Weather Report, to Walt from the B-Raw Podcast, and Billy G. Fuck, I got the order wrong. Billy G and Walt from the B-Raw Podcast. Now, I got to admit, I got the order wrong. Nobody realizes there is an order. There's an order. It's just the order you guys signed up in. And honestly, I'm going off the top of my head when I do this 90% of the time, so sometimes I fuck up. So there's another little glimpse behind the curtain for you in how Aaron does things for this podcast. Aaron has a list. He double checks the list to make sure there's no new additions or no new subtractions, and then rattles it off the top of his head because it's honestly pretty much the same bunch of you guys every fucking week, and I love you all dearly for it. Don't ever change. I love you just the way you are. Unless you want to, strong arm some of your friends into signing up and throw me 5 ducats, because we're getting there, I can almost pay for my coffee. No, actually, that's a lie. I can't even pay for my coffee. I'm almost breaking even on Patreon, and that would be good enough for me at this point. So a couple matters of housekeeping to discuss real quick. Let's see, this past Saturday, I did a live stream, and I did throw a link out there. The only person that joined me was Duchess from the Boomer Bunker, and we had a lovely conversation. It was a couple hours. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, take out the part where I was kind of babbling before she hopped on with me, and that will drop on Friday as an extra episode, as I like to do with my guest episodes, where they come off on a different day and you still get the usual ranty on Tuesdays. And then also on Sunday night, I sat down with B-Word, formerly of Unfiltered Discussions, the Bleach Bros, the Raunchy Regret podcast, and the producer behind the Hateful Gnomes Music Hut. And B-Word has stepped away from podcasting recently, and it was nice for me to sit down and shoot the shit with him. Dude's a good guy. He's my homie. So that episode will be coming out in either next week or possibly the week after. Probably next week. I don't think I'm going to chop up the one with Duchess too much. I mean, they're both kind of long. Both are around like an hour and 45 minutes. So I think I'm just going to drop them as they are. Like I said, you're just going to clean them up a little bit. The full uncut versions will go on under the Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links, and the chopped up version will be out for the free feed listeners. Like I said, on this Friday and the following Friday, respectively. So, that being said, I am sitting down to record this episode on Monday evening because, like I said, I spent a lot of time recording over the weekend, and I just didn't have it in me to record another episode too. And I'm kind of glad I did because, there have been some events that have occurred today. One of the things that did happen over the course of the weekend is Zelensky met with President Trump and sat down with Trump and J.D. Vance in the Oval Office, and they sat down and they were, basically they had all the media in there, and, that's not necessarily how you want to handle negotiations. And this was supposedly that Zelensky was coming to sign the agreement that was going to grant the U.S. access to mineral rights in Ukraine as sort of a way to soften the blow of the billions of dollars that we have sent over there to support the fucking meat grinder for the last 2.5 years. And basically, it wound up devolving. Zelensky more or less forgot that he was coming, hat in hand, asking for more from America, and a lot of people just saw the little last minute clips of it where the thing started to go off the rails, where Zelensky started kind of copping attitude, and he found out really quickly he was not dealing with Sleepy Joe and fucking cackling Kamala when J.D. Vance and Trump both were, they had to check the little fuck, for no lack of a graceful way to say it. It's the truth. The little prick basically started trying to act like, we owed him something, and he was rude, he was disrespectful, he was arrogant. He called J.D. Vance a bitch, basically. And at that point, Trump told him and put him in his place. He said, look, you're coming here trying to act like you're the tough guy and act like you're in a place to make demands, and you're not. The only reason you even have a seat at the table is because of the U.S. You wouldn't have lasted 3 days if we wouldn't have intervened and, been financing your war for the last 2.5 years. And then you want to come in here, come back when you're ready to talk about working towards peace. We're not here to finance an endless war. You're here we want peace. If you don't want peace, get the fuck out. And in an unprecedented move, Zelensky left, didn't even get his lunch, just gone. The interns ate his lunch, literally, after Trump and Vance figuratively ate his lunch. And, of course, the usual horseshit leftist reactions. Oh, my God, Trump's so unprofessional. Trump, he was a bully. He was mean. Zelensky's he's the real leader of the free world. He's not a fucking leader. He's not. And free world and this man are fucking antithetical to each other, because the little troglodyte literally has suspended elections, arrested people for speaking out against him, jailed American journalists. An American journalist died in Ukrainian custody, which everybody seems to have fucking forgotten. The guy he's outstayed his presidential term. He's claimed, under, the auspices of being in a state of war, that we don't need elections right now. The simple fact of the matter is he knows if he went up for an election right now, he would lose. His own people don't want him there. I mean, the guy is literally a dictator, and the war is the only thing keeping him in power. So he is doing everything in his power to extend the war. He doesn't want to lose the grift. He doesn't want to lose the control. He doesn't want to lose the power. You take a washed up little fucking hack of an actor and then all of a sudden, the world starts treating him like a celebrity because of him feeding all the military-aged men, women, and children of his country into a fucking meat grinder for 2.5 years. Then, they put him on the cover of Vogue with his fucking wife. Nobody stops to look at the just blatant corruption. The Ukraine was corrupt well before, and publicly known to be one of the most corrupt governments in Europe well before any of this shit kicked off. And I'm by no means saying that I side with Putin on the matter, but, ultimately, and I've said this before, there was a program going on against people in the Crimean Peninsula that, they said they wanted to leave. They said they wanted to be part of Russia, and Ukraine was like, no, you're not fucking going anywhere. And they were carrying out like ethnic cleansing against ethnic Russians that were in Ukraine as Ukrainian citizens. But, again, and there, people say that's propaganda, that's a lie. But you know what? Before the war started, it was something that people were talking about. So it's not like they just made it up to justify the war. The rumors were there well before the actions happened. But I'm getting off track. So anyway, this little fuckwad gets all bent out of shape, storms off, leaves. And, immediately leftists are all condemning Trump and condemning J.D. Vance and saying how unpresidential they are and all this other shit. Now, these are the same assholes who spent the last 4 years trying to pretend that a vegetable was a fucking cognizant president and a cackling fucking whore was somehow a outstanding stellar representation of America. So, frankly, their opinions are utterly fucking worthless to somebody who has their head not wedged firmly in their ass. But, the predictable outrage. Meanwhile, we have the primary opposition in Ukraine immediately moving to start impeachment procedures against Zelensky, which I think the guy was probably a little too public with it. He shouldn't have made such a big scene about it, because there's a really good chance Zelensky's going to disappear him, because that seems to happen to people who have been, opposing his dictatorial aspirations over the last couple of years. Again, but I digress. So then Zelensky troglodytes his way off across the pond over to the UK, and he meets with a bunch of NATO people, and he still is talking about how they need to be brought into NATO or they need to be given nuclear weapons, and that's the only way he's going to accept peace, because then he has a deterrent against Russia. And that's one of those things where he kind of tried to bring it up like a threat, like if our men and boys are out going out to die, your children will be on the front lines too, and basically trying to say that he's going to make it an American problem. And unfortunately, all the globalist fuckstains over in Europe have decided to, I shouldn't say all of them. It's being blocked, but a lot of the EU is saying, "Oh, well, we're gonna show you all the support you need," and like the UK is, "Oh, we're ready to put boots on the ground." Now, Keir Starmer is a utterly worthless fucking political hack piece of shit, globalist fuckwad, but at least he had enough, sense to say he would do that. But he put that caveat of with the support of the Americas, which does not exist. So, in a very politician move, he's making a promise that he's never going to have to deliver on because he put the caveat of with America's support, and America is very vocally saying no fucking mas. We're done with this shit. It'll be a cold day in hell before we send American sons and daughters over there to fight and die for your fucking ego, you little prick. And that's kind of where we're at right now, and I find myself in a position, I don't condone war under any aspects. I honestly, I'm not so naive as to say there's not a time where violence is necessary and mandated in some circumstances and required in a lot of ways. However, I don't agree with a pointless grinding horseshit. Neither side can gain the upper hand. No advantage to be had dragging it out and killing an entire generation of fucking people horseshit. I believe some people need to die. I firmly believe that. I believe it should be done viciously and efficiently and get it over with as minimal collateral damage as fucking possible. I believe, these situations should be handled surgically, not with a fucking blunt object, which unfortunately is still the mentality of a lot of people in the positions of power, which is another reason I think we need to have age limits and term limits on our fucking governmental positions, because we have geriatric fucks over there that are, Russia, like it's 1984, because the last time they were actually relevant and cognizant, it was the fucking Cold War, and the fucking USSR was still the big bad on the globe. And it's reflected in the attitude of a lot of retarded motherfuckers that are sitting in the halls of Congress and making policy and making fucking public proclamations trying to say, Orange Man bad because he wants to end the war in a peaceful manner and an efficient thing so nobody else has to fucking die. The absolute retarded mental state coming out of these smooth-brained fucks who want to sit there and say, I stand with Ukraine. We should keep funding this and keep sending more and more people off to hundreds of thousands of dead already. And when you're looking at both sides, because I don't trust the numbers from either side, but arguably both sides are lying about how many losses they've had. They're both inflating the numbers of how many of the enemy combatants they've killed. But when you look at, somewhere in the middle is probably the fucking truth. We're still talking literally hundreds of thousands of dead. I don't see that as a benefit. I don't see that as any way, shape, or form being worth this horseshit. The fact that it's been dragged out, Zelensky has reportedly been repeatedly talked away from the negotiating table. Zelensky passed a law in Ukraine saying no one was allowed to negotiate with Putin, which pretty much impedes the peace process. That means you don't have any interest in actually achieving peace and bringing a resolution to the conflict. And in that little arrogant fucking troglodyte's mind, it's not about, peace and resolution and saving lives. This little cocksucker wants retribution because he thinks he was wronged or some shit. I don't understand. I can't pretend to understand that mindset, because I see that this is a waste of life, a waste of resources, and it's literally accomplishing nothing. But when you're factoring pride and fucking grift and theft and consolidation of power and everything else that's going on behind the scenes in this shit, again, I'm not in a position to claim I can understand how that works, because I'm not exposed to it. I'm not in that position to make those decisions. But at the same time, I look at the numbers. Like I said, hundreds of thousands dead. An entire generation, basically, of, like the age of people you need to continue your country's longevity, dead. All you got left is old people and babies. That's not a good look. Now, that's also questionable, because I've seen a lot of social media posts coming out of the Ukraine of like people in their early 20s. Because I think, if I remember right, and I'm not going to swear to this, but I read something that they don't start conscripting people till they're like 25. So the late teen, early 20 motherfuckers are still out there living the good life. And you see all these videos of cities all throughout Ukraine where young people are out partying, going to clubs, going to bars, having a good time, dancing, having fun. It doesn't look like a country shattered by war. And then you look at the United States and all of our areas that are destroyed by wildfires and hurricanes and tornadoes and flood damage and train car derailments. Because I'm going all the way back to East Palestine, Ohio, and the just utter fuckery that has been coming out of the U.S. government and the utter and shameful neglect of its people by the last administration, while they're just throwing money hand over fist at shit everywhere else around the world. And all the fraud and waste that's been exposed by Elon between shutting down USAID and, and oddly enough, a lot of these leftist protests have been much smaller than the ones in previous years ever since USAID got shut down. And I'm sure that's a coincidence. And honestly, it probably is partly a coincidence because Soros still has plenty of money, but it also came out in all these audits that Soros wasn't using his money to fund this bullshit. He was using tax dollars that was being funneled back to him for, a modest $10 million investment here, and that's him $110 million in return because he sets up some fucking, NGO that's getting financed through USAID and gets all that money back and then uses it to buy himself some more judges, get some more elections, and continue the decline of America. Fucking Sith Lord piece of shit, geriatric cunt stain. And again, we get the same talking points I love. Oh, billionaire Musk is enriching himself and did it. Elon's doing this on a voluntary basis. He's not receiving any compensation. He just wants to try and fix shit because he's smart enough to realize that we're in a fucking doom spiral and we're really going to have to work to extricate ourselves from it. And that's what him and his team of autistic fucking special people are doing. And they're auditing department after department, finding waste, finding fraud, referring that stuff to Trump. And Trump's dealing with it as he sees fit. And he's running the country like a business, which is the only way we can actually pull it out of this shit show that it's become because bureaucrats and parasites don't actually create and they don't know how to. All they know how to do is take and leech. So fuck them. I hope every time one of them cries, every time I hear about a federal employee that lost their job, I have no sympathy. It brings joy to my cold black heart. But so there's that. And then we had the last week they were talking about that releasing the Epstein client list, and they're saying it's a phased thing. And it came out and it was a big fat nothing burger. It was the flight logs. It was fucking redacted bullshit. It was utterly useless in terms of still nobody's wearing fucking cuffs. And then it comes out, as people start to backlash against how this big fat nothing burger that they were trying to build up like they did something, it comes out that Pam Bondi says, apparently the New York branch of the FBI is sitting on a shit ton of documents. They're refusing to turn them over, even though we demanded them and blah, blah, blah. They're not cooperating with the DOJ, which this shouldn't surprise anybody. Just because Cash and Pam got confirmed, just assuming that these fucking corrupt bureaucratic parasites are going to just roll over and comply with what they're being told to do when it's definitely not in their own best interest to do so because they're going to lose their power, they're going to lose their grift, and a lot of people might actually wind up seeing fucking jail if Bondi's got any fucking stones on her besides going after fucking law-abiding citizens for red flag laws. Yeah, I was never a fan of her nomination. I still don't agree with it, but anyway, that's a whole nother matter. But so yeah, they have not established control over the agencies they're supposed to be running yet. And Pam Bondi gave them a hard deadline, like I will have this information by 8 a.m. or else there's gonna be consequences. And unfortunately, the consequences really didn't come in anything that was any satisfying way to me, at least, because theoretically, as of today, a truckload of documents and materials was delivered to Kash Patel to go through in relations to the Epstein case by the New York branch office. And the director of that office has been forced to retire. Now, forced to retire for directly going against the direct orders of the head of the Department of Justice and the head of the FBI seems like a pretty light punishment. Being forced to fucking retire. No, he should be in fucking shiny metal bracelets and being forced to answer for why he didn't fucking want to disclose the information about all these pedophiles. Now, without going too far down the conspiracy theory route, I firmly believe that they're not wanting to disclose this information because once it's disclosed and made public, it loses its value as leverage to the people that are named in those lists. And I 110% believe the deep state and the the swamp, whatever you want to call it, the uniparty, was using that as leverage. All these unelected bureaucracies were keeping their power entrenched by blackmailing the fucking people that were caught diddling kids on an island, because they know if that information becomes public, no matter how much shit you've done to try and pander and candy coat and sugarcoat and get these motherfuckers on your side, that's where there's going to be a line drawn. And I mean, although to me it seems like the left, pedophilia is not a deal breaker for these fucking degenerate loser fucks, but that's a whole nother conversation that we'll have at some other time, because I really don't feel like going down that rabbit hole at the moment. But, it's kind of like they said, they may not, agree with fucking electing pedophiles, but Biden being office showed it wasn't a fucking deal breaker for him either. And but again, that's all hearsay and allegations, because nobody ever really looked into it, even though they, after a lot of nonsense, came out and admitted that Hunter Biden's laptop was real and that he was referred to as Pedo Pete in those emails, and he was, Ashley Biden's diary was verified as being authentic, so that means he was showering inappropriately at an age with his daughter where he shouldn't have been doing it, and she knew it was wrong, and she was taking showers late at night so dad wouldn't get in there with her. Apparently that's not a deal breaker for the left, but again, neither here nor there. And so that happened. What else happened? More Title IX protections, stuff to keep men out of women's spaces, came to vote in Congress for legislation. Again, every fucking Democrat, including the couple that I was actually starting to have a little hope for, voted against it. And apparently protecting women isn't as important as protecting men pretending to be women. So I'm once again disappointed in these fucking ideologues who can't really see past the party line to realize that reality is reality. And no matter how you want to fucking spin it, some things just ain't meant to be. And again, as I've said in the past, if you want to be trans and you're an adult, that's fine. Do what you're going to do. Do what's got to make you feel like you're fulfilled and living your best life. But again, that comes with the caveat of everything I say. Do what you got to do to live your best life, as long as it's not at the expense of other people. And frankly, if you're a biological man and you want to force your way into women's spaces and you want to get bent out of shape for that, them not wanting you there, you're out of touch with reality, because physiologically you're not a woman. You never will be a woman, and there's nothing you can do about that. That is basic biology, and the denial of it by people is fucking ridiculous. You have to deal with the fact that if you're this big, burly-looking fucking guy in a dress, you're still a guy in a fucking dress. If you have a dick, you don't have any business being in the ladies' room. I don't give a fuck what you identify as. Period. That's the end of it. And it's, I feel unsafe. Yeah, well, you're making everybody else feel unsafe. I have no fucking sympathy for these people at that point. And mostly because it's not like the passing ones who are saying this. It's not the ones who realistically, should feel unsafe in the men's room. It's the dudes in a dress. And they're not handling it in any kind of feminine manner. They're taking it out like fucking poorly adjusted guys. Like, you go ahead and try and stop me from going in a woman's room and you're going to be having a problem. Yeah, dude, you sound like a fucking guy with an attitude. That's what you don't sound like a woman. Sorry, you're not. It's those are the people I have a problem with. Those are the ones who have completely lost any sympathy for me for the fucking cause. I feel for the fucking, 0.5% of people in the world who actually suffer from legitimate gender dysmorphia. I have no sympathy for the people who have shit personalities and decide to try and compensate for it by forcing their way into other people's spaces under the banner of a protected group, because all of a sudden they feel it's inclusive and welcoming to them, because they could never establish that, living the actual truth. So they had to live their truth instead of the actual truth. But the news flash about it is if you're a loser before you put the dress on, you're still a fucking loser after you put it on. And you can walk around trying to pretend you're unique and special, but somehow you're still always going to know in the back of your mind that you're a fucking failure as a human being. And even, trying to wedge your way into a protected class that originally existed for people with a legitimate condition, and you don't have it. You just have a fucking, inferiority complex and insecurities that you have to compound and wedge into this fucking horrific parody of what an actual female is or an actual male is, because while they're much less common, the female to male transitioners do exist, and I understand that. And the big difference is they're not trying to force their way into like fucking men's sports. or trying to compete on any level against men, because the reason you don't see it is it's happened, to the best of my knowledge, once. One female to male transitioner has tried to enter into a MMA fight and literally got the brakes beaten off of them. So it's the physiology does not lie. You can't compete on the same level because we're not built the fucking same. And no matter what you feel like, no matter what you identify as, you can't beat your biology, no matter how much you wish and hope and pray. So, every Democrat in Congress voted against the Protecting Women's Spaces bill that was on the board. It still passed because, Republican majority, but it was very disappointing that it panned out the way it did, because apparently the party that likes to say they're there to defend women and stand up for women's rights only means that as long as there's not a dude trying to claim to be a woman in the process. Oh, and one last thing before I forget it, too. Also, it's been officially announced by the White House that all aid to the Ukraine has been officially paused. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier in my little tear about how Zelensky's a petulant little fucking child trying to drag the U.S. into a fucking war. Well, Donald Trump is out there actively trying to prevent World War III from occurring, and as much as I may still hold the Cheeto in some contempt, I'll give him his dues. He's actually managed to keep a lot of his promises that he made on the election campaign trail, and frankly, we're seeing an entirely different Donald than we did the last time he was in office, so at this point, he's definitely earned the benefit of the doubt, in my book at any rate, because, is everything perfect? No. RFK is already kind of flip-flopping on vaccines because of a measles outbreak. Now, back in the day, I remember being a kid, the measles wasn't a big fucking deal. You got the measles, it happened. It wasn't the end of the fucking world. Now he's talking about MMR shots, everybody should be getting them, which he's said previously that he didn't believe. And it's like, I don't know if he can actually handle the pressure that from the position he's gotten himself into. I really hope he pulls his head out and does a better job, because I don't think a few measles cases is necessarily the thing to make you change your stance on everything that got you the nod in the first fucking place. But anyway, yeah. So, no more foreign aid to Ukraine until such time as Zelensky has proven to Trump's satisfaction that he is actually invested in a peace, not extending the war. So, that's good news, I guess. It's shitty news for the Ukrainian front line, but, it is what it is. And there's, a lot of talk that we're going to pull out of NATO, too, because you're not going to drag us through Article or Section 5 of that one either. Article 5, whatever it is. And it's kind of funny, I saw a post on X earlier from some fucking kraut who was like, well, if America's going to pull out of NATO, we should just seize all their bases and everything all throughout Europe. And it's like, you dumb motherfuckers. If we decide to pull out of NATO, maybe we'll leave the buildings. You're not getting the fucking equipment. You're not getting the supplies. You're not getting the soldiers that maintain those equipment and supplies. And furthermore, if you try and take them, you're going to find yourself on the fucking receiving end of an American ass whipping. And we are still the big kids on the block, because that's another reason. NATO, I've said in the past, has outlived its fucking purpose. It should have been disbanded when the Soviet Union collapsed. NATO existed so Europe wouldn't have to worry about defending itself from the expanding Soviet Empire during Reconstruction after World War II. Europe in and of itself at this point is they have their own economy. They are stable. Everything is repaired. The United States should not still be footing the bill for every fucking ally's defense in that organization. We should not be committed to, we have to send our young people to go fight and die and spend our tax dollars to protect people who fucking hate us. I'm really of the mindset that I've seen in several memes, fuck it, keep the money here and let them hate us for fucking free. Europe over the last several decades has gotten to the point where, they treat Americans with contempt. They treat Americans with disrespect. And I'm more than willing to let them continue doing that for fucking free. Let them defend their own borders. Because let's be honest, if the NATO pact was invoked because somebody attacked the United States, there's not a fucking country in the organization who's going to be able to contribute anything more than a token defense without leaving their own borders completely wide fucking open. Because none of them have surplus military. They might be able to send a few units, maybe a battalion, not enough to really tilt the scales in any meaningful fucking way. So, in a lot of ways, we don't benefit from this. We pay 70-some% of the total portion of NATO's expenses. there is literally not a metric that convinces me our remaining in this union is a profitable thing for the United States to do. And now you get the people who are sitting there, oh, well, force projection and being on the world stage and maintaining our presence throughout the world. Well, that's all well and good to the effect of, yes, the last time we pulled out of Europe, a world war happened, and then another world war happened. And we had to come in both times and get involved in them, which is what made it a world fucking war. But it's not like we got into it unprovoked either. Pearl Harbor, ring a bell? Yeah, it happened. So, but as somebody who I don't believe in maintaining an empire. I don't believe that we should be expanding out there and trying to police the fucking planet. To me, it's not, the people who are, oh, well, we need these bases for, power projection. What's wrong with projecting power from a stance of you cannot fuck with our country if you want to? Not we have to stop every little fucking skirmish around the planet because we're the big guys and we need to make sure the world's playing by our fucking rules. And meanwhile, again, $40 trillion fucking dollars in debt. We really shouldn't be financing the rest of the world's fucking problems. And, we shouldn't be spending $1 million to fucking teach Ugandan basket weaving lesbians how to fucking, use birth control even though they're lesbians. What the fuck? But again, I digress and I'm kind of getting rambly and ranty and unfocused. So we're going to put a pin in it for this week and say for now, that's what I had to say. Special episodes coming soon. Thanks for listening to another episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a rating. Go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, sign up for the mailing list, interact with the show. Click the links, sign up for the Patreon, join the Discord. Come and interact, be a part of the show. Buy the merch, support your favorite creator. Or support me. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Till next time.